Just 25 hours before training camp, Shams Charania announced that 18-year NBA veteran Al Horford has committed to a multi-year contract with the Golden State Warriors. While rumors have spread for most of the offseason about his potential signing with Golden State, nothing has been official up till this announcement. The 6'9", 39-year-old center just finished up his fourth season in Boston, having won a championship with the team. With Tatum having suffered an Achilles injury at the end of last season, however, and a future of uncertainty ahead for Boston, they're not seen as contenders this year. This led to the Warriors pursuing Horford as their #1 recruit to join the team in what could be the last run for a championship in the current configuration. That is, Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and Steve Kerr. Although all three players are contracted to play for one more season after this, a lot could change, including players getting traded if they don't win the chip this year. While the Warriors aren't expected to move on Curry, any of those other three I mentioned might be elsewhere at the end of this season. In order to go all in, however, they have to commit to building a team around these three players in Steve Kerr's motion offense. Since it was announced by Shams that Al Horford will be the team's starting center, this opens up a lot for the trio. Could this add a new dimension for the Warriors, however? There is another angle that we'll also take a look at that includes how the Warriors could fit a player like Jonathan Kuminga into their starting lineup and what that could look like if Steve Kerr decides to give it a shot. Now get ready. You're about to get. Now, while Shams announced Al Horford's signing, it's more of a commitment made public by Horford than an actual signing. This means the Warriors have to sort out the Jonathan Kuminga situation first. This news being announced, however, means that they're fairly close. But the biggest part about this is the fact that the Warriors are signing Horford to a multi-year contract. This sort of goes against what Dunleavy Jr. said at the exit interviews, that they're going all in for this year and want to focus in this year only. If we're to believe both things are true, however, that he's going all in this year and that Horford is on a multi-year deal to likely end with Curry's, Butler's, and Green's contract, this might make Steve Kerr raise an eyebrow, because that leaves his as the only contract that ends after this season. Something to think about. So what can we expect from this signing? Al adds a fourth piece as he stretch five to allow more spacing, specifically for Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green to operate. Last season with the Celtics, Horford averaged 9 points while shooting 36% from three on 5.2 attempts per game and 42% from the field overall. In his 60 games played, he also grabbed 6 rebounds and had 2 assists in 28 minutes. The one thing that doesn't show up in the stat sheet is what he brings defensively. Despite his age, he's still a very good defender who built his career on 3-and-D. While the Warriors had Quentin Post as a stretch five, and he did post up great shooting splits with 41% from deep on the season, he was still a rookie, and Kerr had concerns for his defensive liability. Not that he couldn't develop defensively, considering he won defensive accolades at the NCAA level, but in order to commit to giving Steve Kerr one last shot at Steph Curry a shot at a title this year, the team wanted to find a way to maximize as well as optimize his, Butler's, and Green's minutes on the floor, and a stretch five that can also defend at a high level was tops on that list. This gives the Warriors a ton of flexibility throughout the lineup. For example, last year they had Moses Moody playing power forward, despite him traditionally being a two-guard. His length allowed him to guard bigger players. However, listed at just 6'5", he's about 3 inches shorter than most starting power forwards in the league. Not only is he a bit small, this also created a logjam at the position with Jimmy, Draymond, JK, GP2, Trace, Kyle Anderson when he was here, and the list goes on. So what this means is we'll see more minutes for Moody at small forward, or maybe even some at the shooting guard slot. As a matter of fact, this allows Jimmy and JK to play more in those small forward roles, or even the two guard in Jimmy's case, which brings me to my next point, Jonathan Kuminga. Now, some of you are probably wondering if this means the situation with JK is resolved, but the truth is, as of this writing, it has not. The pen still hasn't hit the paper, and the current stalemate is over whether or not the Warriors will offer JK a player option or team option. I have another video that will be released shortly that covers that in detail, but that being said, the offer to Horford still hinges its official capacity on the Warriors' potential contract with Kuminga. With regards to fit, however, with Horford and Draymond at the 4 and 5, this means you can have a lineup that puts JK at the 3. Now, why would I do this? From opening night up until his injury, Jonathan Kuminga was 40.5% on catch and shoot threes. Now, this makes things very interesting. Obviously, JK likes to put the ball on the ground and get to the basket, but if we can see his floor spacing is one of his strengths by taking those shots off the catch, this changes everything for the Warriors. That threat of a catch-and-shoot three gives him a clear opportunity to get downhill and finding Steph or Horford on a kickout. With those 4 spots occupied and Curry at the 1, yes, that means Jimmy Butler could be the Warriors' starting 2 guard. Now you might think this is crazy, but bear with me for a second and ask yourself this question. If 6'2" Curry had Butler's skill set and 6'7" Butler had Curry's skill set, where would you put them in the lineup? Jimmy's ability to draw contact, find Curry, or find the open shooter in general means he has great court vision, something all elite point guards have. I mean, when you see Jimmy's clips and the role he plays on the team as not just a passer but an elite playmaker, you'll realize that both he and Curry are interchangeably already in those point guard and shooting guard roles. Not quite the same as the motion offense, which is typically out of the corner with a flare screen for Steph Curry, but the same type of chaos arises and Jimmy still finds Curry while collapsing the defense. In an interview last season, Kerr did state that the fit with Butler, Kuminga, and Draymond was a problem. He also said that it was his intention to give that trio a bit more runway to start the season. This means Kerr is well aware that if he gives them enough time, there's room to develop that chemistry with the potential to be the team's best 5-man lineup. What it also means is that JK will have an opportunity to play the 3, and if you really believe he's capable of playing in that small forward spot, then there should be no question about the rest of that lineup. This, of course, all depends on whether JK signs the qualifying offer or the Warriors' 2- or 3-year deal. If he takes the QO, the Warriors are less likely to try to develop chemistry with a group and give what they consider an unproven player time to grow in a role that frankly might never work. A longer-term deal that allows the Warriors to trade him if they can find a player with a better fit, aka a Keegan Murray type down the road, might see them place him in a role where his value as a trade asset is maximized. Now you might be wondering about other players at shooting guard such as Melton, Buddy Hield, or Pods, and whether or not it's more likely to be one of those players that start instead. This could very well be the case. However, in the case of Melton, it still hasn't been a year since his ACL injury. It wouldn't be in his best interest to start the season, as I'm not sure he's even fully healthy. Even when he does fully recover, it might be best to keep him in a reserve role. He'll be important to the team down the stretch. Moses Moody provides depth at the 3, and while he should be at the 2, guarding that position can still be a bit challenging. If he takes a leap defensively this year, then we could see that happen, but that seems somewhat unlikely. Buddy is an elite shooter, and we've seen Kerr play him at both the 2 and 3 last year. He even had some good minutes defensively, for which he earned praise from Steve Kerr.
Hey fellas, I'm going to utter some words that have never been spoken before by anybody on earth. Buddy Hield, you set the tone defensively.
It's possible they have him start at the 2. However, this is one of the what-ifs regarding JK's eventual contract. In the case of a QO, this is a viable option if he maintains defensive intensity. Regarding Podziemski, this would probably be the most likely option. The downside is that there is no point of attack defender, and it puts more pressure on Curry and Butler defensively. While Pods is one of the best in the league at drawing charges, he regularly gets blown by on defensive assignments and doesn't really have the ability to recover. If the lineup with JK doesn't absolutely blow Steve Kerr away, he'll likely default to a lineup that replaces JK with Pods, followed up by one with Buddy, and if neither of those work, then he'll look at Moody. Can the Warriors finally compete with a stretch 5 that defends at a high level? This season will be very interesting as they've pledged to go all in, so let's see what shakes out over the next few days. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on the Warriors' acquisition of Al Horford by posting them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Till next time, swoosh.